Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 339. This is a very special episode because we're back down at UA92 and I'm delighted to be joined by two students here from the university, Naomi and Eddie. They're going to be talking about some of the research that they've been doing and also just getting some perspective on industry as well and where they're currently at. So, guys, thank you very much for coming in and joining me.
No worries.
Like we just talked about, we're going to get into plenty of the work that you guys have been doing and the experiences that you've got so far. But just kick us off, Naomi. I'll start with you. Just give us a little bit of background on yourself and also what you've been doing recently.
Yeah, so I've just recently obviously finished university, but my background is in football and in athletics. Like I've always had a passion for like sports, and then I played football myself, and then as I got to a more senior level, I've played for Salford City, which was like an incredible experience, playing open age football. And then when I started uni, I didn't really have any like clear idea of what I wanted to go down. It was just more of a choice like of either go to uni or go into work straight away, and I was like, that is not an option for me.
Yeah.
So I came to uni, and then in my final year, I took a really like strong interest in strength and conditioning. So I've done like a lot of my own research in that, and then I've also started doing online coaching as well within the fitness industry. And then with my passion with football as well, I've sort of combined like the two and started coaching athletes, which is something that I want to develop. And then hopefully I'll do my master's in September to develop this. And then again, in my final year project, my research also was in football, but more to do with the psychology side of things, which we're going to touch on later on in the podcast.
Awesome. Eddie, what about yourself?
I guess a little bit similar to Naomi, so sort of didn't actually want to come to uni, so that was completely off the cards for me. Had sort of no direction on where I wanted to go, so I sort of went straight into work, but then quickly sort of realised that what I was doing wasn't really what I really wanted to do. So then sort of made a really last sort of second decision to come here. Luckily got in. Probably within like a week, I decided to move up to Manchester, start uni. And then sort of ever since I've been here, I've got myself some opportunities. So yeah, second year I went to Salford City, sports science intern. And then moving into my final year, went to Stockport County, which is where I'm at now. And I think them opportunities have really helped me grow. And it was always for me that if I was going to come to uni especially, I need to make the most of it. Yeah. And I think having both of these opportunities, especially starting that one at Salford City in my second year, has really helped me, like big time. Because otherwise, I probably feel like I'm a year behind now. Do you know what I mean? So, and that sort of gave me that introduction into moving into my third year and my second internship, where it sort of felt a little bit easier to sort of break into it. And then, yeah, a little bit on my research. Did my final dissertation, finished that a few months ago now, and really enjoyed that process as well. The research process is something that I didn't know that I liked, but now I really love it. Yeah. Which is great. And then, yeah, finishing as well. So we finished at the same time and graduated, and moving on to definitely my masters and see what other opportunities are out there.
Brilliant. Just on those opportunities, because there'll be a lot of people in your positions, maybe a few years back as well, that are looking for foot in the door moment of getting into a Salford or a Stockport or a private facility. How did they come about? Was that through the university? Was it through contacts of your own? Like, how did it come about?
Well, for me personally, it actually come through the uni. So obviously, if you are you're at a university, opportunities will arise, but you still have to be there to take them, don't you? Yeah. So I think that's probably more important, like what you do whilst you're at uni before these opportunities arise and before that as well. So if something does come about, you've got sort of maybe relevant experience, so that you're sort of up there to get that role. But the uni are brilliant. I mean, they had a link with Salford at the time, so that's how that opportunity arose, and then luckily I got it. But yeah, I think it's probably more important that you're actually ready to, even though it's an internship and that's your first experience in that, hopefully relevant experience will get you into that in the first place as well.
Yeah. What about yourself, Naomi?
I think for me personally, like, you've just got to take like every like opportunity that comes. Like you said, before like university, like I really wasn't like keen on like the idea of coming to uni, but like now that I've graduated, it's probably one of like the best decisions that I've made. Especially like coming to UA92. Like I did remember going to like maybe 2 other open days, and I remember I must have been there for like 10 minutes and I was like, no, this is like definitely not for me. But then when I came here, I was like, oh, something's different about it. And I think, again, it is like getting those real life opportunities. Like I've had a lot of like great opportunities through the uni, even like to do with like the research. Like I got the opportunity to present at an international conference for Lancaster, which was amazing because from that, I've made like a lot of networking from that. So I think networking is like another big thing as well. So obviously, yeah, I've got a degree from uni, but also like the people that I've met and like even doing things like this, like I probably wouldn't have ever had this opportunity again if I hadn't came to uni really. Like
Yeah.
it just offers you like another like stepping stone, and also like it gives you time, I think, as well to grow and develop as a person in like a controlled like and a safe environment. So you're ready for like those opportunities that are presented.
I definitely
Like, you're
agree with
ready
that.
to take them.
Yeah, and also I think like jumping back to that first experience I had, it's like you say with networking, it's building really good relationships. If you build good relationships, that's actually then what got me my second opportunity. Because otherwise I might have struggled getting another opportunity somewhere. But luckily I built them relationships and then I got one further from that.
I think as well, like even if you feel like you're not like qualified enough or ready for it, if an opportunity has came your way, like just take it, because
Yeah.
I always think like you're not gonna be 100% ready all the time for an opportunity. Like I've had like coaching positions came to me. Like last summer, I coached over at the MIP, Manchester Institute of Health Performance, and when that came up, I was like, oh, like I'm not too sure. Like it's quite a big like company and like a lot of responsibility. But I went like to the interview and I got the job. And at the time I was thinking, oh, I don't know if like I'm fully like ready or qualified yet enough for this. But like the job was great and I learned a lot from it and learned a lot about myself. So like even if you think like you're not 100% ready for a job, just take it, because like yeah, you're never going to be 100% ready, but just take it. And just there's a quote that I really like. Embarrassment is the cost of entry. Like
Brilliant.
you've just got to go for it. Like yeah, and just see what happens.
I fully agree. I think that's a really important point, because people will wait and wait and wait, won't they, and think an opportunity comes up, but I don't really know what I'm doing. But you're going to learn by doing it, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other big thing, which I'm sure you've done already, which everyone's done, is you've got to go in and make mistakes.
Yeah.
You got to go in, make mistakes, and then learn from those mistakes, and that's what then drives you forward.
Exactly.
So in 5-10 years' time, you'll reflect on it and go, "Oh, I did this at Salford. I did this wherever it was going to be, and it didn't quite work this way. But what I did learn was this worked a little bit better."
100%.
So no, I think it's really important. Really important points. Let's get into your research. I'm going to flick a little bit between both of you on this. So what I'll do, Eddie, do you want to start by just introducing your research, why you sort of went down the path that you did, and just give the title of your research to start with?
So initially looking at what we're going to pick, so I sat down with my supervisor, and we was having a think about it, what I could do at my current opportunity within my placement, and the research question ended up being, how does match frequency affect neuromuscular fatigue within Category 3 academy soccer players, footballers? So that was the research question we ended up picking, and we went with.
Brilliant. So both of these, you'll hear from Naomi in a second, are very sort of current topics, because fixture congestion is definitely something that's a common area of conversation. I mean, we speak about it a lot on the podcast. Yeah. And then Naomi, do you want to do yours?
Yeah. So mine was looking at the effects of release on athletic identity in male academy football. So again, like athletic identity is like a massive thing, not just in football, but like all sports. Like athletes that tend to be in the sport from like a young age are seen to like form their entire identity around like their sport, and it's actually such a big thing in football, like especially when you speak to like young like male footballers and you say like, oh, like what do you do? Like a lot of the times, 9 times out of 10, they say, oh, I'm a footballer, not like I'm James, I'm whatever. They say I'm a footballer. And then those like athletes that are in the system from a young age in the academy, when they get to maybe like 16, 17, and then all of a sudden the contracts come up and they get released, like it takes a massive toll like on those athletes. And obviously like in recent like news and like over the past like few years, there's definitely been like a few topics that have came up about like this entire subject, and like personal like matters as well, especially like within like our age group. Like I think there has been like a massive effect, and like it's coming to the light like a lot more, and I think it needs to be like spoken about more, and a lot more research done as well.
Yeah, and you've done some brilliant work on it, and we'll go into maybe some of the thought processes going forward for academies and stuff in a little bit as well. You mentioned before already about the process of collecting research, that you enjoyed it. So just expand on that a little bit. Was it something that you didn't think that you would?
Probably just because something I've never done before.
Yeah.
That was probably all that was based off. But actually sitting down and working out how we're going to collect the data and stuff, I was sitting there thinking, oh, I think I'll probably really enjoy this. So ended up collecting the data for 18 weeks. So that was something in itself, you know, to be sort of consistent for 18 weeks. I really enjoyed that, and sort of, you know, over them 18 weeks, you build and build and build, and everything gets better and better, and you sort of feel like you have more confidence in yourself, sort of as a practitioner, to be able to do it. So yeah, that was really good.
And then just talk us through the process. So what was the actual method that you were using to?
Yeah, so basically we decided, based on other research, that a match day +2 would be the day that we sort of collect our data. So we collected counter movement jumps. So we collected 3 maximum counter movement jumps of each player, and that was the first thing. They come in the morning, and then they come straight in the gym, and we'd collect them one by one. And then on that same day, the +2, we would do a standardised drill outside, and that's where we'd collect our GPS metrics to try and see if we could find that neuromuscular fatigue, which is something that we sort of had to develop and really think about what's this drill going to sort of consist of, so on and so forth. And then once we figured it out, it was then putting it into practice, wasn't it? So I think we had 2 weeks of practicing it before we actually started for the start of the season. And then, yeah, it was the 18 weeks going on from there. But, you know, it's getting the jumps, downloading them, exporting them, and it'd be the same for the GPS metrics and getting that in every week and then getting it all updated.
Talk us through what that drill looked like in the end then, because I'm sure there's a lot of different ways you could have gone with that.
Yeah,
so
I've got a good graphic for it actually, but so basically it started off with a simple passing drill, and once they'd gone, let me start again. It started with a half lap of the pitch, so that was the initial half lap, come in straight into a passing drill, sort of. Obviously, you know, if it was like, didn't have different numbers every week and stuff like that, so that would change a little bit depending on the amount of numbers. It might be 4 boxes or 3 boxes, but that simple passing drill, and then you'd move into sort of a dynamic ramp warm-up from that, which sort of consisted of your usual dynamic ramp warm-up movements, but then we'd go into some change of direction and some sprints at the end. So we sort of tried to cover everything we could that's sort of relevant to the match demands and the game demands.
Brilliant. We'll go into some key findings in a second, but Naomi, for yours, do you want to talk us through the process of collecting the data that you did?
So doing like the actual, like collecting like the data, like I actually really enjoyed it. So the way I did it was through like qualitative interviews.
Yeah.
So I interviewed 4 different like former academy players, and they had all been in different academies ranging from like category 1 to category 3. One of the footballers that I did interviewed was my close friend, and then the other 3 they were like from friends of a friend sort of thing. But like especially with my friend that I interviewed, like it was quite like not shocking, but some of the stuff like that he did like tell me, like it was quite like personal, and I think to be able to like hold like that space for someone to open up was like something that like I reflected back on my research to think like I'm able to find out like quite like personal things within like an interview, which is quite like good for me for my research. But during like the interviews, I just again like started off like asking the players like just about the whole experience about like being in the academy, and all of them had been part of the academy since like young ages, obviously like various, but from the ages from like 7 all the way to like 10. So again from young. And they'd all like played for like quite a lot of years within the academy. So one of the people that like the players that I interviewed, like he actually told me that he'd been in the club since he was like 6. So obviously that's quite young. And he'd stayed at that same club all the way up until he was 17. And then so when he was 17, he got offered the 2-year scholarship contract. So where you basically play football full time and then studying a BTEC. But again, like it was just really interesting to like hear like all different stories, because they all said that they had a great time in the academy, but then when they were released, at like similar like stages of the football journey, like they were all just like devastated and experienced like such like a range of emotions, some more serious than others, and others a little bit less serious, but still quite like suffering from the consequences sort of thing. So again, it was just like a really interesting like topic to delve into, and a lot of the findings that I like found, hopefully will go on for further research, because I feel like it's not finished yet. It's just the start.
Some of the quotes that came from yours were quite shocking, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Especially around the BTEC and what they actually had come away with. Do you want to cover a little bit of that? Because some of the phrases that they used were, it was quite strong, wasn't it?
So again, those who don't know, like when you're in a football academy, you do a BTEC sport. So it's not an option where like when you're in college or school where you can pick like what you want to do. It's just BTEC sport. And one of the players I interviewed, he said like, I don't even know what BTEC I was studying. You just sort of just do it as a tick box sort of thing. Yeah. Just because by law you still have to carry on with like your education whilst you're 16. And then some of them even said like, one player that I interviewed, he came out of the academy and he said like, I just didn't know what I wanted to do next, because he said I wasn't really interested in doing BTEC sport at all. He was actually interested in other subjects like business. Right. So one of the players now, he actually has his own business, but it was only because his mum like made him go to like college and resit like the actual degrees that he needed. But he basically reiterated that like the education that you receive whilst in the academy, like it's not very like sufficient. It's sort of like more of a tick box exercise, and like some days he just like they said like they just went and studied for like an hour and then back onto the pitch. So it was sort of just like pushed to the side a little bit, like the education side of things, which obviously sets a player back when they're released because they're no longer in the system.
Yeah. You also used the phrase, and especially in your post, and I've heard you speak about your research before, about athletes dying twice.
Yeah.
So do you want to just explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So that quote is literally like in the start of my research. So with that, it means when a player gets like, in terms of like football, when a player gets released from like the academy, like they sort of like, their whole identity dies with that, because that's all they ever knew. So once a player gets released, it's like, what now? Because they're not in that safety net or that bubble like anymore. And then obviously the second death is like a natural death. But that just shows like how like serious it is when players do get released, like it is compared to that reflects the emotions they feel. It's almost like grief.
Yeah, the identity piece is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
How everything has been built up over a number of years, so it's really interesting. Eddie, we'll go back onto yours. Do you want to give some of the... So we spoke about the method, setting up the research. Do you want to give some of the key findings around?
Yeah, so we ended up finding that there was a statistical difference on the 1 game per week compared to the 2 game per week with the counter movement jump height performance. So that sort of shows us that, you know, there will be some neuromuscular fatigue present after a 2 game week, you know, more compared to a 1 game week, which is good. And then down to the drill itself, the standardized drill, there was not really any significant statistical differences shown, but there was still some differences in max velocity, accels and decels. So that was good to see. And I guess that's still sort of further on showing that, you know, on a 2 game per week compared to a 1 game per week, there is that difference, and it sort of highlights the need for sort of optimizing your recovery protocols and things like that, so that we don't have that in the future, you know, and then going on from that, potentially injuries and so on and so forth. So that was really good. But I think it's probably another thing is that your first undergrad piece, you know, what are the limitations and what would I do next time? And there's probably, now I look back, probably a few things I would do differently, which would probably pull out more information from it, which would really help.
Expand on that, because that'll be good too.
Yeah, I think it's more when you first sit down and you're an undergrad, you've never done anything like this before. How are you gonna get it perfect? You're not, and like we said earlier, I guess it's making them failures and not always being perfect, which does sort of spur you on. But I think, you know, I could have taken this off in loads of different ways. I think the standardized drill itself could have probably been a lot different. It could have been, you know, still a drill, but it could have had different elements to it, which might have helped pull out some more things like some total distance in there, some other things as well that could have sort of contributed to getting the result we wanted to see. and that we hypothesised. Potentially even switching up completely and something that I would like to do, but obviously it's resources and things like that in future research. For future research is potentially doing like a small-sided game instead of that drill, and see, because then you can't get much more specific to the game than that. So potentially doing that would be great. But obviously that's got its own challenges. Being in a club, how realistic is it going to be to do small-sided games? Straight away on a +2, maybe not. But yeah, sitting down again, there's loads of things that could change, and probably would get a different outcome or a more supportive outcome than I did. But it was still really good to see, because at the end of the day, within category 3 football, within the academy, there's not a lot. There's almost nothing to draw from. So it was quite good to do that, sort of try and find something novel, and try and get some more information for us as sort of practitioners, so we can just move forward with it.
100%. You just mentioned there about the recovery piece as well, potentially moving forward in future research, looking at recovery methods. Did that come into play with when you were designing your research? Because obviously your different players might be doing slightly different things in terms of recovery.
That was something that we didn't actually take into account. So I didn't implement any recovery sort of protocols for that period myself, but players do their own certain things and that. So maybe going back next time, it might be good to do like maybe a questionnaire, something simple like that, just to find out what the individuals are doing themselves, and maybe you could tally that together and match it up with the results as well.
Yeah. You also mentioned in yours that you're looking more into internal metrics, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what were some of those that you were thinking that potentially for
I think it's very difficult when you do a standardised drill. You're not going to get the changes in sort of total distance and other metrics like that, because it's standardised. It's not going to change. But that's why I sort of like the idea of the small-sided games, because you'll get all them differences and you'll be able to analyse them. But yeah, so it's sort of the usual ones that we take. So we take total distance, high-speed running, accels, decels, max velocity, and player loads. So yeah, I think if we was to do it again, I'd still focus on them jumps, but I'd also like to sort of really go into more detail with the GPS and try and get some more from that. Be really good.
Was there any takeaways around the jumps and sort of standardising the jumps and that whole process?
Yeah, I think that's a hard one in itself, especially with academy players. Although they might have been in the system for a long time, you've got things such as like their form, so on and so forth. That's not an easy one in itself.
Yeah.
With inconsistencies in that. So yeah, that's a bit iffy. There's some other bits where we could probably do different types of jumps that might make it a bit more reliable. But just based off previous research, jumps have been something that have been used loads, especially within football, because another thing I'll go back to is convenient. You don't have a lot of time, and to get lads in and get them in and get them out and try and get some really important data off them in a small time frame isn't easy. So yeah, that's why we chose that in the end. But yeah, like I said, going back, probably do it a little bit different.
Well, that's great, isn't it? Because the fact that you can pick out all these pointers that you focus in on, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And for any research, I think anyone's going to do similar, aren't they? Now we're back onto yours. We've sort of highlighted some of the key issues with academies and the BTECs, the education side, and when players are going through that release period. What are some things that, from your perspective, you think academies need to do better on the aftercare side?
So I think in terms of like the aftercare side, I think there's a lot that academies could and should be doing. So this is just, again, like going back to what you said, like for the actual research, we had like quite like limited time. So this is just from 4 players, but they all said like similar things. So again, like with like more time, hopefully I can find out like a little bit more and see if it is all one-sided or there's a mix of things. But all players said like there could be more aftercare. Two of the players said they were literally just left in the dark. Like one player found out over the phone like he was no longer like part of the team, and the coach actually said to him like, so his contract was still like in date, but the coach actually said like you're not going to be here for like next season, so like that's it sort of thing. Even though like his contract was still like going for like another month. So the coach said to him, you can still come down and train with the players and like be part of the team until like your contract like runs out, and then obviously that'll be it. So that's what he did, like continue to do. But then I think it was like after like the first like 2 weeks, the coach actually separated like the release, like going to be released players from the team, and just sort of left them like to the side and said like go and train, and they were basically just left to their own devices. So that like feeling that player felt was just awful really, because it's just like they said like they just felt like they weren't cared for and they were just literally like pushed to the side. So then when they were released, this player as well at the time was getting paid. So I think the money side of things comes into it as well, because you're a 16-year-old and like they're getting paid like a good amount of money, and then all of a sudden like that's just dropped and you're just released into like nothingness. And obviously like housing as well, like that gets taken away from you. So I think in terms of like aftercare, maybe like a bit of like an external guide that like helps players that are released. Like it's still part of the club, but it's just solely for released players, because currently with a lot of clubs, it's like once you're released, that's it. Like you're just no longer part of the club, like see you later sort of thing. Like go off quietly. But you've got to remember like a lot of these players are with clubs since like 7, 8. So it becomes like sort of like a family, and then you're just told, no, that's it, like it's over sort of thing. So I think if there was an external, maybe like team that would support the released players, and then again going back to the education side of things, if like there could be support for post-education when these players are released, because they're leaving with a BTEC, but that might not be enough to like go to uni if they've not got the grades that they're required. And from what the players told me, like some of them didn't even get the BTEC in the end because it wasn't took serious. So they're left with like just GCSEs, which like as we know, like that's not enough to get you to like uni or maybe even an apprenticeship. Like it's not enough. And then again, maybe like counselling, because a lot of these players are suffering with like, as I mentioned before, athletes died twice. They're dealing with like grief. So that's like a massive emotion. And like if it was any other like normal like everyday person, they're going through grief, like they'd seek support. But because it's like a footballer, and even because it's like a male, like it's like a lot of like stigma around getting like support for your mental health, especially for men. Obviously, there's a lot more like talk about it now, but there's definitely like more that can be done. So I think maybe having like a counselling team for players that like are being released, especially at 16, 17, 18, like they're still like young people at the end of the day. They're not fully grown adults. So just having that support to guide them and like navigate through the whole process, because it can be quite isolating from what I found like from the interviews.
Definitely. You mentioned there about the financial side as well, isn't it? When you got a 16-year-old earning whatever they're earning, you said, didn't you, the most wealthy 16-year-old out of their group of friends, which is then suddenly gone. So it is a massive psychological impact.
It's huge. And it's that as well, like in a friendship group, like they're known as like the footballer, almost like a bit of like a star in a way, like they're strolling around like school, like when the days that they are there, and like everyone knows them as the football player. And then for that to be stripped away from you, like it's almost a bit of like, it shouldn't be, but it is. Like one player said to me, like they felt just embarrassed, like to be going back to school and like people saying, oh, you're not playing football anymore. And they felt embarrassed, and that shouldn't be the case, because the fact that they've played in academy for so long is an achievement in itself. And it's not to say your football career is over, because it's not. And I think that's also like a bit of a subject that needs to be like spoken about. Like just because like you're not part of an academy anymore doesn't mean you like need to stop playing football or your football career is over, because it's not. But again, there just needs to be a little bit more support and talk around it.
Yeah, definitely. I also want to focus in on the profile that these kids essentially are facing when they're going through academies, because we talked there about the aftercare. But when they're in the academies, what more do you think can be done to, we've said about them being they're seen as the footballer, and when they're introducing themselves, they're the footballer, they're not Naomi. So what do you think can be done in the academy setting while they're at the academy to give them a little bit more? Because we know that their whole lives aren't just football. There's more in there.
I think definitely like maybe having, like especially for like the younger players, like having more like options to do other things like during the week other than just like football training, because in academies, like it's literally like you're living and breathing football Monday to Sunday, and it's like there's still children and young like young teenagers at the end of the day. So I think like maybe if they had like a day, like just one day a week where they explore like other options like other than like football and like other like post education, so such as like coming to university, because I think a lot of like football players in academies as well, they never really think about like post education because they're just so set on like becoming a footballer. And I think that needs to be changed within the academy. Like, yeah, you're in an academy, but it's not promised that you're going to make it like professional. So let's look at other options like post grad. So there should be like classroom sessions like on what you can do like post. Like one of the players that I did speak to, he said like they did have like maybe like a classroom session talking about like careers like after football, but again he said it was just like one session and then it was back out on the football pitch. So it was just emphasising the fact that like no one's taking it like as serious as it should. The fact that like not everyone's going to be like a professional footballer, and you know like the possibility of release, but it's like what's provided for those players after and like what's being done during like the academy when they're there 7 times a week, 6 times a week, like telling them the reality of it, of football, and giving them other options. Like even like coming to like open days at uni, like especially like the scholars, like they should be open to that and like being told like these are your options other than like just football.
Yeah, 100%. No, thank you for both covering that, because I think you've touched on some really key information from your research, but also your mindsets around like what could be done in the future. And you know, I can tell you both really got stuck into the topics that you've covered as well. One thing I wanted to speak about, which I think there'll be a lot of listeners that will relate to this, is your perceptions now heading into industry. Mm-hmm. So you've had experiences working with players in different capacities. What's your mindset around getting your first full-time, part-time opportunity now? Eddie, what's
Yeah, I think it's that, like you said, that initial step, and it's probably quite daunting and maybe a little bit of sort of am I ready?
Yeah.
You know, but I think that if you're ready, then you'll be ready at the end of the day, and you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to really get onto it, and if there's positions out there, apply for them. Even if you think that it's a bit of a stretch, apply and see where you get. You know, go on to do further study, and I feel personally that there is a position I could be ready for, and that excites me because I feel like I can bring something positive. So it's sort of just looking and trying to find something, you know, with people you know, applying and just seeing where you get to, really.
I think for me, like I'm looking at going on to do my masters in strength and conditioning. Again, like if you would have said that to me like 3 years ago at the start of uni, I would have said like no chance, like no way, like, and even like during my dissertation, I was like no, like this is enough like university stuff for me. But like upon reflection, like I'm actually really excited to go into like my masters. And again, like you said, like for now, over summer, like I'm just going to be taking every opportunity that comes my way. And I think, especially in the last year, because I have applied myself so much like to uni, and I've gone for like different like opportunities and different like roles and like coaching jobs, more opportunities are coming my way because I've said yes like in the past. So I'm just being like open to what comes. But like the main goal is to get to like the masters, and then obviously to like aid that, I'm still like working in a gym and being in that gym environment and then training myself as well. So I've started doing high rocks as well. So like even just learning stuff like from different like sports and like different like fitness roles, I can apply that within a sports setting. So looking at like working with like a football team, for example, like different fitness like components and how I can bring that into teams and to obviously help aid and develop the performance. And something I'm like quite interested in like doing as well is starting like work with women's team like strength and conditioning, because I think within like female like football they are like still lacking like a bit of like external resources. Obviously like it is growing the women's game, but in terms of like physical like demands of the game, I think there's a lot that needs to be done to improve like women's sport, and I think that's like seen in like injury cases with women's football. Like a lot of ACL injuries are happening like all the time. I think it was last summer there was literally like an ACL injury like every other match that was being like on TV, and I think researching that as well, doing my own research, that can be like heavily prevented through like strength and conditioning. So I'm really looking forward to starting like my masters and hopefully doing research in like the women's side of the games, which can hopefully like aid the game in real life.
And then to put you both on the spot a little bit now,
Yeah.
where do you see, so what's the key role? What are you aiming for? What's the role where you were like, if that came up and I ended up in that role, that'll be the sort of dream of where I want to get to, whether that's a club, a position, a certain squad, like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think everyone has their aspirations. Like, you know, I could think now like this is where I really, really want to be in 10 years, for example. But I think right now for me, it's like whatever opportunities come my way, take them, and then do my further education, do my masters, hopefully maybe do them side by side. That would be what I'd really, really like to do. So whether that's a part-time role, a full-time role, and then do my masters either part-time or full-time. But that's within sports science itself. And for me, I really love the on-pitch stuff. That's sort of where I really, really thrive. So maybe on-pitch specifically, strength and conditioning. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think it's not necessarily first team academy for me. You know, some people like first team. I think it's wherever I can sort of come in and sort of make any impact, that will sort of get me to where I want to be. So I'm not limited in sort of the age groups or anything, although I would love to work in the first team one day. But right now it's, getting that role as an S&C, sports science, and taking the opportunities and continuing my further education. And then I think, you know, if you do all them things right, the further goals will just come, won't they? So, yeah, we'll see.
Very good. You skated around that one a little bit.
I know. Gave so many different
I didn't
answers
chuck any
there.
names out or nothing.
Go on, Naomi.
I think for me, like personally, like I would love to have like my own gym, but not just like a typical gym, more for like athletes. I think like over like in America, and especially like going back to like women's like football, like over there, like I've got a lot of friends playing in America now, and the gym facilities that they have access to is like insane. Like you'd think they're playing like first team like from Man City over here, and they're in college. And I think there's like a lack of athletic gyms, like not just in Manchester but just in England as a whole. Like you've got your typical like bodybuilding functional gyms, but like not enough like athletic facilities. So like I'd love to have that like myself, but like to get there, like I know that I need experience. So again, like getting experience with like working with like women's football teams, and not even just women, like men as well. But I just have a bit of an interest, obviously because of my background in football, and just working with like a range of like different athletes, and just helping them like get their best performance through like fitness and gym. Like that's sort of like the end goal anyway, to have like my own facility. But to get there, got a lot of work to do, masters and experience. So we'll just see.
Well, you're both in a great position. There's a lot of people in similar positions that won't have done probably half as much as what you've done. And I love the fact that you're both talking about taking advantage of as many opportunities that come up, which I think is really important. We'll finish things off by talking about, let's touch on your experience at UA92.
Yeah.
If people are looking for universities, if they're looking for certain pathways, like what's been your experience here?
I think for me, like I said at the start, uni wasn't an option at all. I didn't really enjoy college. It was sort of a bad time around COVID as well. Didn't enjoy it, and to be honest, I didn't even know like if I'd have enough points to get into a uni, because I wasn't sure. And then making that last minute decision, sort of UA92 allowed me for this opportunity to come within a week's notice. So firstly, that, you know, sort of the opportunity for people to actually come to uni, that's the number one thing that's really important. And secondly, when you're here, sort of for me, this is the best way of me working, how they run it. So we don't have any sort of formal exams or anything. It's all assignment based and practical based. And that's definitely helped me, because I know that if I was going into lecture halls of 200 people, that wouldn't suit me at all. But here we've got, you know, nice sizes, everyone's really close knit together, and that's definitely helped me a lot.
Yeah, similar, to be fair. Like I was never like gonna come to uni. It was more just sort of like, again, like a last minute decision. Like when I was at college, like my like next step was going to go to America to play football, but then that didn't end up like happening. So I was just like, well, what's the next like best thing? So I was like uni, but again, like I went to like other like traditional like unis to look around, and I was like, this is like not me. Like I just can't see myself like sitting in a lecture hall
100%, yeah.
full of like 200 people. Like no one's going to be paying attention with that many people in there. But then when I came to UA92, like something about it was just like different. Like, and they say that like, oh, like we do things differently, and you hear it and you just think, oh, like they're just trying to get people in, but they actually do. And like after like I've just finished now, like recently, like I actually say to people like it's the best thing like I've ever done. Like if you ask me my first year, it'd be like, oh, like yeah, I'm just gonna go along and just get it done. But honestly, like it's the best thing like I've ever done. Like in the last, like I'd say my final year, the amount of opportunities that I've had like has been incredible. Like, and I know for a fact that I wouldn't get it anywhere else, or if I went into work, like I just wouldn't get them. And I think as well, like the way the uni like is set up, like you said, like it does help you grow like as an individual and like as a person, and you're not just like another number coming through a uni. You're actually an individual, like I'm here to grow. Like personally, I think I've grown like as a professional, going into like different like work like environments. And that is like because of the uni and like the lecturers as well. Like they all like care about you like as a person, like go above and beyond to get you to like wherever you want to go. Like if you say you want to like try this work experience, like they'll get at you as long as you're like willing to put in like the hard work as well. Like it's not just going to be given to you on the plate. Like you do have to show that you want to like work hard. But again, like just the opportunities and just like the space to grow and as a person like has been like incredible. So yeah, I think if anyone's like thinking like about going to uni but they're not sure, I'd definitely say like come and look at UA92 because it does like offer that like edge and like difference as well and like real life experience.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both very much for coming on.
Yeah.
Just finish us off with, if people want to keep up to date with what you got going on, they'll hopefully see you in the roles that we've mentioned before.
Hopefully, yeah.
Social media, LinkedIn, where are you guys?
Yeah, so my socials are just easy. It's just my name, Naomi Conti, and then 24 on everything.
Brilliant.
That's easy. Yeah, literally probably just LinkedIn. It's Eddie Gale, simple as that. And you'll find me on there, put a few bits out, so we'll see.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, and thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you. That's very good.